And there's a couple sections of scriptures here that I'd like us to look at. And Isaiah is always great, always a prophetic word, but especially this time of year, a lot of those words are foretelling of the arrival of Christ into this world and some things to look for. And it's interesting that while it's foretelling in the context that it's there, for us, if things have already happened, if things have already taken place, we look forward to the opportunity to celebrate, looking back on prophetic words and putting them into practice as we look for those now that they're no longer prophetic in what's to come. It's to how we should all look at this story. Something that inspired our sermon series for the last few weeks, again, was a resource. It was a book many years ago. Well, I don't want to say many years ago, but it was over 5. Is that many? Can we say many for over 5? It was a little bit ago. Was a book and resource from Mike Slaughter over at Wesley United Methodist Church in Ohio. And it was called Christmas is Not Your Birthday. And invited us into a different type of offering, a different type of giving. It was very mission-oriented, but that kind of struck with me. And for those of us that have been together for the last few weeks, we're familiar with that language. But for those of you who aren't, or maybe you're here with us or in between, is this kind of tagline for our thought process this year as we walk through Advent anticipating the arrival of the Christ child of Christmas, is to understand that phrase that Christmas is not our birthday. That my actual birth certificate could show that I was born on December 25th. I'm not, but it could show even there, legally, that I was born on December 25th, but still Christmas is not my birthday. Right? The holiday that we celebrate is not my birthday. That day on the calendar may be, but Christmas would not be my birthday. And I wanted us to look at this for a moment as we walk through and understand some of these words, because tradition, memories, activities, all the things that we have to say yes to, that we shoehorn into this time of year, we have to really question, is the chaos, is the prep, is the stress, is that really revealing of the arrival of the Christ child in our world? There was a specific ingredient a few years ago that at my very first appointment, it was a different type of grocery store. It wasn't a chain store. Yet there was this dip. Have you ever been the person that has to bring this dip and everybody's looking forward to it? And you better not change it because everybody's expecting for like the 8th year in a row that you're bringing this dip. This is your legacy, right? Well, they didn't have the specific brand of thin sliced meat that goes in this dip. What are we going to do? Right? And it sent this sort of panic on what and if we didn't have the dip, understand, Christmas was still going to happen. We were still going to be excited, family was there. But for a moment, I was losing my mind. And I was starting to panic and starting to sweat a little bit. How are we going to get this thing, right? How are we going to get the meat? Not even like the main ham. I'm talking about the sliced thin meat that goes in this dip. It wasn't even the main thing. But I was so worried. What are other people going to think? I have to have this, or I'm going to come to the table with nothing. Does it really reveal Christ? And I wonder if any people have been there before, that we become stressed about some of the things that are heaped upon us and expectations, and we forget that Christmas isn't about us. It's Christ's birthday. Did he ever ask that you would stress so hard about something that doesn't really show me love on my birthday? The worst thing that year was that the cream cheese wasn't whipped as good as it could be, because guess who was late getting home because I had to drive my 30 minutes round trip. So half of it didn't get eaten and some of it got thrown out anyways. Come on, man, after all that still happened? So all that worry, really half of it got wasted. Could I have whoever's, Pam, are you using the clicker? I'm going to use Isaiah first, and then can we go back to Matthew? Is that okay? Okay, here we go. We're going to look at Isaiah 61, verses 1 through 2. This is the prophetic words of telling of the Lord's arrival, and our response to our prophetic words, but we can see how we can live this out today. Prophet Isaiah says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners." Verse 2, "To proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn." Now I want us to think about those two verses before we go forward on this, that all of us aren't necessarily called to preach on a pulpit right on Sunday morning or in services. I understand it. But we are all called to share the good news, the arrival of Christ, and the grace that covers us. And wise men said that sometimes we might even have to use words, but we can still preach, can't we? We can still preach the love of Christ, even if we don't have to open our mouth. But we are encouraged to proclaim our faith. To bind up the brokenhearted. That means to be the healing salve in this world, that when we see someone that's broken or hurting, to be the one that binds up their hearts. And understand with comfort, compassion, and peace that we will come in that tender place. Freedom, we see the release of those things, but also to comfort those who mourn. This entire season has been difficult for some. Maybe this is the first difficult year, maybe it's one of many. But I know the next 48, 72 hours are going to be even more difficult for those that are struggling, for those that are mourning. Because it's all been that anticipation and waiting in Advent. It's different for my 6-year-old who's still trying to process what we're waiting for. But for those of us that know, we know that heartache might be something that we're anticipating, but we still celebrate the arrival of the Christ child in a messy and broken world for us. Pam, I'm going to flip back to Matthew right now for our focus of this day today. It comes from Matthew 25, verses 31 through 36, the sheep and the goats. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his throne in heavenly glory. Verse 32. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people on one side as the shepherd separates sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Quick time out. This is just for illustration purposes. Doesn't matter where you sit. Let's go back. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Verse 34, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Verse 36, I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you treated me, you looked after me. And I was even in prison, and there you came to visit me. I would encourage you to read the rest of this chapter on your own for your devotion this afternoon, to also look that is a moment of praise, what Jesus gives the inheritance for. Now, why do you suppose that they were separated? And he's blessing one. The rest of this chapter will reveal why there was a separation, and maybe not so much good news for those on the other side. Have you ever had to give a gift or pick out a gift for someone who has everything? Have you ever been in that moment that there's really nothing that they need, and they're racking their brain trying to figure out, how can I possibly get something for them when they already have 4 china hutches full of stuff? What about when they ask every time that we leave and they send us home with things? They're literally telling us in a way, I have too much stuff. Would you take some of it? Have you ever had to find something for someone who had everything that they really, really needed or wanted? Yet we still felt compelled to have this stress over, how do I figure out what I can get them? How can we get that under budget? I wanted to share with you the definition of gift. It means something given willingly. A gift is something given willingly to someone without payment, a present. Whether it's this season or it's any time you've ever been given a gift, have you ever had this scenario happen to you that you give a gift and the recipient always says, oh, you didn't have to do this. Or, oh, that's way too much, that's way too, no, you shouldn't have. kind of awkward when you're the giver, isn't it? Well, yeah, I know I didn't have to, but I wanted to. So you had to take it. Oh, that's too much, is it? I want you to enjoy this gift. Now I feel like I'm apologizing for it. Have you ever been there for a second? You're kind of, would you just take the gift and enjoy? It's something that I'm giving to you as a gift. Remember, it's a gift. I'm not, here, happy birthday, here is an obligatory thing. It's a gift. It's just something. And if I couldn't afford it, well, shame on me if I overspent on it. But if I give something to you, I want you to have it. From my heart to yours. And I ask that because do we ever become apologetic for the gift and somehow have to rationalize why we gave this thing? It was supposed to be a moment of joy. That we give something to someone without payment. Because sometimes when we give gifts, those reactions come why? Because sometimes we get the attention and glory for the gift. Christ didn't come for his glory. He didn't come for his gift. Christ came to give a gift to us without payment. So when we're going about our Christmas giving, we understand that the gift's already been received. It's not necessarily a package. It should be a Christmas gift. But what's on Jesus' wish list? Do you see the title of the sermon? Jesus' wish list. What's on Jesus' wish list? Not the Christ child that we see in the nativity scene, but right now, when the redemption work has been done, when the gift has been given, and the gift, praise the Lord, has been received, how can we package ourselves as a gift to Jesus on Jesus' birthday? A song that's almost 25 years old, which in some ways is a long time, and in some ways it's not, when we think of our Christmas classics, if you will. Now, if we looked at just physical albums, right? Whether they're records or the big things that look like tapes, but they're bigger, or the small tapes, or whatever. If it's a physical thing, you can put your hand on that has music. Then Bing Crosby's White Christmas is the best-selling Christmas song of all time. But if you don't have a physical thing, and you've downloaded it, or you've had the digital opportunity through iTunes or any other way MP3s to download music, if you add that in with physical, then the greatest selling Christmas song single of all time is All I Want for Christmas by Mariah Carey. Now you're really going to help me out here for a second. Could you just put your hand in here and tell me, are you familiar with All I Want for Christmas from Mariah Carey? Okay, good. So what I want to do is I want us to think about this, because when we're thinking about it, understand when it's the best selling of all time, it does what? It literally rings a bell with us. It makes sense with some of us. It's something that's pleasing to the ear. It's something that we remember. It charts every single year since 1994. It was 25 years old. If it's the highest selling of all time, then it speaks to us, right? Well, it's interesting, because I kind of feel a little deceived by the highest selling Christmas song of all time, and I promise we're getting there, okay? Please stay with me. I promise we're getting there. It resonates with people because it isn't about the gifts under the tree. It's about the people. It's about the yearning of our hearts. It's about something that we desire more, and that's relationship with people. Or is it? Because Mariah Carey admitted herself that she co-wrote this song, and she loves Christmas. But to her, all I want for Christmas is about a dog. It's about a puppy. Changes things, doesn't it? Now, of course, because we needed to sell this thing, right, the co-author said, well, we're not just going to sing about a puppy, and Mariah Carey agreed, right? She's a businesswoman. And so when they wrote it together, they used this kind of language, right, that to her, she was just singing the joy of one of the first gifts that she ever received that just knocked her socks off. But the co-writer helped her use that language, right, that could help us fill in the blank. So it's not a lie. That's not what I'm saying, right? But I don't think we were led to believe that this was inspired by a puppy. But I want to share with you this, because it all depends on how we read something. Regardless if it's about a person, or a pup, or the Savior. Can I read to you the first verse of All I Want for Christmas? And I want us to hear this through the lens of Jesus' wish list. From Jesus to us, what if these were the words that Jesus wrote? I don't want a lot for Christmas. There's just one thing that I need. I don't care about all those presents that you have under the Christmas tree. I just want you. I want you for my own. I want you more than you could ever know. Would you make my wish come true, Jesus? Because all I want for Christmas is you. On Jesus' wish list. It's just us. It's not the stuff. It's not the traditions. It's not the expenditures of time. It's not anything that we have. If Christmas is not about us, if it's about the Christ child, if it's about the honorary birthday boy, Jesus' wish list has one thing. And it's us. It's our gratitude. It's our love. It's us saying, yes, Jesus, it's not about me. It's about you. And thank you for the gift of eternity. Thank you for the gift of salvation. Thank you for everything you've done that I didn't deserve, without payment that I could never pay for. Yes, Jesus, on your wish list, you only got the one thing. How will we give ourselves to Jesus on his birthday? How many of us would ask those that we love, what do you want for your birthday? There's only one thing. And we go, no. You're going to have to ask for something else. Jesus says, no. There's only one thing that I want. There's only one thing that I came in that smelly, dank, cold place. In this broken world, there was no room for me. When people didn't want me, when people were hunting for me before I even arrived. But I came for you. I came for you. I came for you. Now, if there was a gift under the tree this year, it said "to" that had your name on it. Pretend it didn't say from who. Would you open it? Or would it sit there? And then you moved it out of the way to take the Christmas tree down. And then when you put up whatever comes next, Valentine's Day, I don't know. But then it got in the way, so you put it behind the recliner, put it behind. It just became this obstacle, right? This burden. Does that not sound right? If it had our name on it, if this gift had our name on it, would we open it? Will we see what was inside? Or we just keep kicking it around? Would we open it especially if we saw it was from Christ? I know it's in there. Christ is going to ask something of me. I just know it, because that's how Jesus works. Just put it over here. My dear friends, I don't want us to be Christ followers who are literally ignoring the gift. And all Jesus wants is a spiritual thank you. Whether it comes from our lips or our hearts in this moment, all Jesus wants on his wish list is us, more of us, the best of us, the first fruits of us, to say yes when we start today, to say yes that we will see these things. When we look at the scripture from Matthew, it says, when you did these things, for everyone in this world, you did it for me. When you neglected to see someone that was in need, you didn't open the gift. When you saw someone who was hurting and you were too busy doing your thing to remember that Christmas is not about you, it's about me, the Christ child says. If you went past them in their time of hurt because you were just too busy doing your thing, then you missed it. Then you made it about you and not about me. My dear friends, I want us to have the merriest Christmas And it only comes from us fulfilling the wish list for Christ. And all He wants is more of us. I couldn't imagine the person I love most in this world, my wife, saying, all I want for Christmas is more of you. I can't imagine her saying that. But my Savior says, all I really want from you, man, is just more of you. More of you. We're going to look for Jesus' wish list, you and I together. If we're honoring the guest of honor, the birthday boy, the one in the throne, the one who showers us with grace. Will we honor Jesus as we walk through these moments of our lives, and when we open the gift, would we really live it? Jesus just wants us. Christmas. I'm going to ask our praise